Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I had a whole bunch of people send me this story, including Scott Bullock, the president of the Institute for Justice, because the IJ was heavily involved. Supreme Court revives lawsuit from Atlanta family whose home was wrongly raided by the FBI. This version of the story is from Lindsay Whitehurst of the Associated Press. An Atlanta family whose home was wrongly raided by the FBI will get a new day in court. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously on Thursday. This wasn't even a close call at the Supreme Court. It was unanimous. Here's what happened. Back in 2017, there was a pre-dawn raid in which armed members of an FBI SWAT team smashed in the front door, setting off a flashbang grenade, pointing guns at a couple, and terrifying a 7-year-old boy before realizing they were in the wrong house. Oops. The team quickly apologized and left for the correct address, which apparently, I believe, was across the street. And again, it's the odd-even thing. Remember, odd-numbered addresses are often on one side, even numbers are on the other side. I've mentioned before, I've met people who don't know that or don't know what odd or even means with numbers. And that's another story altogether. So the team quickly apologized, left, with the team leader later saying that his personal GPS device had led him to the wrong address. But, of course, the people in the house were traumatized, so they filed a lawsuit against the federal government accusing the agents of assault and battery, false arrest, and other violations. Now, the government is typically immune from lawsuits, but the lawsuits are allowed in certain cases because Congress changed the law specifically to allow suits over wrong house raids after a pair of them made headlines in the 1970s. But the lower courts tossed this case anyway. So public interest groups from across the political spectrum urged the justices to overturn the ruling from the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, saying it severely narrows the legal path for people to file law enforcement accountability cases against the federal government. So every time I do a story like this, people say, but Steve, if you're allowed to just sue the cops anytime you want, cops can't do their jobs. Well, again, I understand what you're saying, but Congress actually said we are specifically going to allow lawsuits under extremely narrow circumstances, and this is one where it was supposed to be possible. But the 11th Circuit was out of line with the other circuits. Other circuits had not ruled like this. So the High Court ruled reversing the appeals court on one of the issues in the case. The justices said it was wrong to throw the case out based on the supremacy clause, which says that federal laws supersede state laws, because the problem is that the Federal Tort Claims Act is a federal law. The federal law at the center of this case actually refers back to state law. While the government is typically immune from lawsuits, it allows those claims in some situations that would create liability under state law. So if there's a state law that allows it and it fits in this narrow exception under the Tort Claims Act, it'll work. Neil Gorsuch wrote for the court, Congress has entered the field and expressly bound the federal government to accept liability under state tort law on the same terms as a private individual. That means there's no need to involve the supremacy clause, and the case should move forward. The ruling sends the case back to the 11th Circuit, which will continue to weigh other questions raised by the case. One of those questions is when the government can be held liable for mistakes made by law enforcement officers in the line of duty. In a concurring opinion, two other justices suggest that raids on wrong houses likely aren't the kind of mistakes that are immune from liability to begin with. Lawyers at the nonprofit Institute for Justice said they're looking forward to continuing the fight. In a brief telephone interview, one of the named parties here said that she was ecstatic. Between laughing and crying, I can't stop. The Supreme Court can say they're wrong. It gives me all the hope in the world. I read the opinion in the case. It's like 15, 19 pages long, something like that. And some people have suggested, hey, maybe we should take a look at that guy's GPS to see what the GPS actually says. It turns out that he tossed it, doesn't have it anymore. And that's always a problem. There's a concept in the law called spoliation of evidence. And if evidence disappears, the party that was in control of it is presumed to have stopped taking care of it for a reason. You can create a presumption that you can tell the jury about. Now, whether or not that's spoliation, if this guy tossed his GPS after it allegedly told him to go to the wrong house, but it does raise some questions, if not eyebrows. But the weird part pops up over and over again. Evens are on one side, odds are on the other. Now, that's not universal. I've heard from people around the country who said, Steve, I know of a place that doesn't work that way. Okay, but it often is the case. It often is the case. And just so you know, this does not guarantee that these people win. A lot of people will hear this, forget about anything that follows, and go, oh, I remember that couple in Atlanta. They won. They won. No, believe it or not, this is simply a step in a long process, a long journey. What the court is saying is that if everything remains as it is now, this couple should simply get their day in court. And by that, I mean they should get to present their case to a jury if they want a jury trial and let a jury decide. And a jury very well could come back and say, you know something? Mistakes get made. Sorry. Or a jury could come back and go, no, that's inappropriate. They're on the wrong side of the street at the wrong house, and the GPS that supposedly told them to do this is gone. Maybe they should be compensated for this. Okay? So the crazy part about this is that we've heard about these raids where they raid the wrong place, and it happens all over the place. There's a famous one that happened in Detroit a few years back, and there just happened to be a film crew shooting a reality show. And there were some people who wondered if they weren't kind of spicing things up to make for some good television. But it's amazing that more people don't get hurt in these. Because there are some places where if somebody were to kick down the door and toss in a flashbang grenade, some people inside the house might defend themselves. So it's amazing that the damages don't involve wrongful death. That's the part that blows me away, is the fact that, wow, that there weren't people deceased as a result. But like I said, this does not mean they'll win. It means they get their day in court. And again, for the apologists who want to say, but Steve, you can't sue the cops, otherwise they can't do their jobs, Congress says you can. And we're talking, of course, about federal officers. And we're talking about the FBI here. And so the whole point of this is that they really shouldn't make egregious mistakes when they're on the job, particularly when they're going in hot and heavy like that, because they know what they're doing is dangerous. I ask them, go, hey, is your job dangerous? And they go, yeah, our job is dangerous. Okay. If you're doing a dangerous job, kicking down doors and tossing flashbangs, you might want to be careful. And if nothing else, check the address. Check the address. And by the way, that's one of the reasons they put up such a big fight on these. They put up a huge fight on cases like this because they know what will happen if this gets in front of a jury. I said earlier, a jury could decide either way, and a jury can. But you understand that if you're the attorney trying this case, speaking to a jury, you hammer on that, check the address. How many times have you walked up to a house in your lifetime and you're curious if you're at the right place and you're looking for the address? You look for the address. Turns out there was an address here that they could have looked at. Check the address. So everybody sent that. Thank you very much. I have to mention, as I always do, the Institute for Justice, a nonprofit organization. They exist because people support them. So check out their website, ij.org. I'll put a link to it below this video. Likewise, they've got a YouTube channel. Check out their channel. But simply follow them, if nothing else. If you can contribute, please do, because they get great results like this. And they're a great organization. I've met many of the people. I've actually met the people who argued this case. So they do wonderful work. 9-0 opinion, unanimous opinion from the Supreme Court. You can't get any better than that. So Supreme Court revives lawsuit from Atlanta family whose home was wrongly raided by the FBI. The Associated Press and Lindsay Whitehurst. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. It took a while for her to figure out she could run, but when she did, she was long, long gone.